This is Jordan from Knowledge HQ, and today we'll be looking at 5 ways in which you can help reduce the cost of college. The average cost of college is $20,000 to $30,000 per academic year. That means that by the time you receive your college diploma, you're likely to also have tens of thousands of dollars in debt from student loans. The best way to pay off your student loans is, of course, to never have them. Here are 5 steps which will help you to reduce the cost of college and therefore reduce the amount of money that you have to pay upon coming out of college. Step number 1, shop around for your college. One of the biggest mistakes people can make is to apply to just 1 or 2 colleges and go where they get accepted. Whether public or private, each college operates differently in terms of the scholarships they give, the tuition costs, and the costs for other fees such as room and board, food, etc. One of the easiest things to do is to apply to an in-state institution. Typically, you'll pay half or even a third of the normal costs that other students pay if you are a resident of the state of a public institution which you attend. So if you live in Ohio, Ohio State is going to be much cheaper for you than someone from Michigan or another state. Wherever you live, one of the first places to look are going to be at those public universities. If you choose to go somewhere else or to a private university, though, it's still very important to apply and to see what sort of scholarships and aid offers they are giving you. A personal example, when I was looking for colleges, I applied to a number of Jesuit institutions. I'd gone to a Jesuit high school, and it was important to me that I go to a Jesuit college. So I applied to about 10 of them, but 3 of the Jesuit institutions that I got accepted to were Georgetown, St. Louis University, and Marquette University. Now, Georgetown at the time was ranked around 20 in the nation, St. Louis ranked about 50 to 60 in the nation, and Marquette ranked just over 100. So they were all very good schools, but they were of various rankings. However, when I received the scholarships, or lack thereof, from these institutions, it made the decision much easier for me. From Georgetown and from Marquette, I didn't receive any scholarships. I had plenty of offers to get loans, to get student aid, but it was all money that I had to pay back. From St. Louis University, however, I got almost the entire tuition covered. I only had to pay about $5,000 a semester to go to St. Louis University. Rather than pay more for a lower ranked university at Marquette, or pay a lot more for even a better university with Georgetown, the financial responsibility that I had was to go to a place that I could afford and that wouldn't have long-term financial drawbacks. It's important when you look at colleges to shop around. There's not always a rhyme or a reason why one school will give you more money than another, so never count yourself out and always apply for those scholarships and see where the pieces lie. The more information you have, the better decision you'll be able to make. Step number 2, find scholarships throughout college. One of the biggest mistakes that students make once they arrive at university or college is to stop looking for scholarships. So many students get whatever scholarships they're offered when they come into the school, and then for the next 4 years, they just assume that there's no other opportunities for scholarship money. This simply is not the case. There are so many, thousands, tens of thousands of different scholarship opportunities out there for a number of reasons. Whether it's based on your major, so if you're an engineering major, they have engineering scholarships. If you're a history major, they have history scholarships. Whether it's because you have some other affiliation, maybe you have military affiliations or even religious affiliations. They have scholarships for Buddhists, they have scholarships for Catholics, they have scholarships for Jewish and Muslim and Sikh, right? All of these different organizations, institutions, all offer scholarships to people who fall into that category. The same with your nationality or your ethnic origin or even your city or your region. There's a lot of small towns that offer kind of a local regional scholarship to people who grew up and lived in those small towns. So just because you have enrolled and you're now in college, do not stop looking for those scholarships. Another personal example, myself in college, I received a scholarship from the Ohio National Guard. My father had been in the military and served in the Army and then in the Guard, and because of that affiliation, I was eligible to apply for a scholarship. So my junior year, I applied and I got $3,000 in scholarship. My wife did the exact same thing. She was a microbiology major, so she applied for a couple medical scholarships. And sure enough, she got $5,000 or $6,000 in scholarships. This is money that we did not get when we first arrived at college, but we had to go and look and apply for. So don't stop looking once you get into college. Step number 3 is to offset your room and board costs. One of the most expensive pieces of the financial puzzle that college is the room and board. For instance, I only paid $5,000 to St. Louis University for my tuition, but my room and board was $10,000. You'll typically find that most universities, if you go and live on campus, are going to cost you around $10,000 a year. That's $40,000 extra dollars that you're going to be paying in student loans if you don't find some way to chip down on those costs. So there's really two main ways to do that, other than finding some scholarship that covers it. The first way, which I do not support, right? I don't like this, but it may be a financial necessity for you. The first way is to live at home. Now, obviously, this is only possible if you go to school in state, or you have family in the area, or what have you. But you'll save a lot of money by simply not living at college, not living on campus. Like I said, you may save up to 40 grand. So that's step number one. Now, I don't really like that because I think that when you're at college, so much of your formation and your interactions and your networking and what you learn and your social development, so much of that takes place outside the classroom. I'd wager to say 90% of it takes place outside the classroom. So I think it's a mistake to kind of take away that additional opportunity for you. But we all have financial necessities. So if that is one way to do it, that may be what you have to do. The second way, which I encourage more, which is what I actually did in college, is to find some way to get it covered. So for me, I worked for Housing and Residence Life. I was an RA and then an assistant hall coordinator. And so because I worked these jobs, I had 3 of my 4 years of room and board covered for free. So instead of paying $40,000, I paid $10,000. And it's not just Housing and Residence Life. So, it's not just being an RA. You can do it. Some roles in Student Senate might cover it. Working for certain offices or departments might cover it, or at least, have some sort of remission. So maybe you pay half of room and board, and so on and what forth. Either way, or if you find an additional way, one cost that often gets overlooked and almost never gets covered by scholarships is that room and board cost. It's easy to forget, but you're going to remember it when it's $40,000 of debt that's you're going to have to pay when you leave. The fourth step is to get other people to pay for your college costs. Now, by this, I don't mean your mom or your grandma or your Auntie Sue. I mean get organizations or employers to pay for your college costs. So this can either be done before, proactively, or afterwards, reactively. So before, perhaps, especially if you're going back for further education, your employer would be willing to pay for it, or at least be willing to pay for, X amount of credit hours or so forth. So for instance, my wife works for Johns Hopkins Hospital in Baltimore, and they have an arrangement where if you go to college at Johns Hopkins University, they, as her employee, will pay for a certain portion of that. Another, well-known way is to do it through ROTC or through the military. So through one of the branches of the military, and you have to put in your time then afterwards and during, but then they will pay for your college costs. Similarly, if you're going to certain schools for religious reasons, so if you want to become a priest or a rabbi, they may be willing to cover those costs because you're going to be a part of that organization. Now, if you don't want to do that, you don't want to kind of lock yourself into one of those, you can also perhaps get it paid for afterwards. So after you're done with college, again, there are certain employers or opportunities that will actually go back and pay for all of your costs. So if you work as a doctor or a nurse or some sort of medical profession in a low-cost area, or if you're a teacher for public schools, or if you join the Peace Corps, or if you work for certain government organizations, it's important to always ask your employer or to look up with your HR department after you're out of college and see if they may be willing to offset or to help pay back some of those student loans. The fifth and final tip for cutting down on college costs is to simply cut down on the smaller costs. When you're at college, you're also living. You're a student, but you're also there to have fun. You're going to be going out to eat. You're going to be drinking with your buddies. Maybe you're going to be going on retreats or with internships. You're also living your life there. But just like living life outside of college, it's important to cut down on the costs that you really don't need. So, not to cut out fun or not to never go out to eat or any of this, but you need to think about, in what ways can I cut down on these additional costs? Do I have to go out to eat every meal? Do I have to go to the dining hall every meal? Can I go to the store maybe buy some food so that if I'm hungry at night, I can just make something in my room rather than going in and spending $15 to get into the dining hall. Same with alcohol. Whether or not you drink, some people who drink, they spend thousands of dollars on alcohol each year, which may sound crazy, but when you go out drinking every night or every weekend, those costs can really add up. Obviously, if you smoke, cutting that out will save you a lot of money. Another big one is having a car. So many people want to have their cars on campus, but a lot of times there's not a need to. Now, maybe you work a certain internship or something where you need one, great. But a lot of people at college, they don't need a car, or they need it so infrequently that they can borrow someone else's or use public transportation or whatever is available to them. So think about, if you have a car, right? Do I need the car? Because when you have the car, you're paying for gas, you're paying for insurance, you're paying for parking, which is often a killer. All of these things that you're going to pay for that you may not need to pay for. So just think about it like you would even if you weren't at college. Where can I cut costs? Because it's small, but again, they add up and they're just adding to this pile of debt that you're going to be accruing at college. Thanks for watching. What have you done to cut costs at college? If you found this video helpful, please leave a like. For more information on personal finances and other life skills, it'd be great if you could consider subscribing to this channel and hitting that notification bell. Until next time, this is Jordan with Knowledge HQ, signing off.